Lori, can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can hear you, but
I
I
don't know.
see your name that says David Grimes. I mean, if the video doesn't work, it doesn't matter anyway, because I'm going to be showing my screen anyhow. But I just, at the last minute, decided, oh, I should turn cameras on because it's just us.
Right.
We
Sorry.
see each other all the time anyway. Hi,
That is
Christine.
true.
I'm going to see where Melissa.
Oh, Christine's here too.
Yep, I'm here.
I can't see anybody else but Lori.
I can only see Lori as well.
I think it's because I think that's my fault. Hang on a second.
I think you should be able to change it to video capable.
I did that.
Oh.
Well, I did it on the main, so the way the default is on webinars, I shouldn't even make this second one a webinar. I should just make it a meeting because it's just us.
Yeah.
And like, I forget to do that every year. Like I just make them both webinars, but our default is, we have the cameras off. And I tried to turn it back on, but it looks like it didn't work.
Because I enjoy seeing you all. Your smiling faces.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just turn mine off since, oh, here comes Melissa.
Oh, so Melissa gets video.
I know. That's disappointing.
I'm feeling left out.
You know.
It looks like it didn't, oh yeah, it did work.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm in the Zoom meeting. Is that where I'm supposed to be?
Yes.
Okay, good. I tried to go to and didn't do anything, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out how I can put Dave and Christine's cameras on, but it won't let me do it.
Well, the other thing, this is crazy. You could just give us your room number and we can come back into a meeting.
That's true. Or I'm going to be showing my screen probably most of the time anyway, so you won't see me. And I do apologize for my voice and general condition today. I seem to have caught a cold. It's kind of funny because I went and listened to just a little bit of last year's review coordinator training, and I sounded exactly the same way. So it must be just something that happens after the site visit.
Now at Texas A&M, if it happens twice, it becomes a tradition. So that's kind of how things work here. If you do it twice, it's a tradition, and then it must continue forever.
Then it's a tradition.
Woo!
How exciting for me.
Yeah.
It's a great tradition.
Yeah, right. Oh, shoot.
So I've heard from a couple people who, well, let's see, who said they had meetings and things like that. I know Amanda has a staff meeting at this time. Brandon is out sick today. April had told me like a week or two ago that she has another meeting at this time. So I'm not sure how many.
Yeah, Tanya replied to the email saying she's out as well.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of people watching the video, it looks like.
Yep.
And that leaves Megan. Yeah, that leaves Megan. That's, yeah. And I don't think Stuart or Marcus, I don't know that they were planning on attending this.
So do Dave and I get bonus points?
You do. You get bonus points for being the audience.
Awesome.
I mean, you gotta be talking to someone, right?
That's right. Otherwise, we're just making a recording.
Right. And I feel like people would know that.
Oh, Megan's here. It says I am here. It's here.
Oh, okay. Oh, she doesn't have audio. Oh, I can fix that. Hold on.
Oh.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Oh,
yes.
There you go.
Hi.
Hey.
I was like, I keep talking, but no one's responding.
And I'm sorry about the video that the only cameras that are working are mine and Melissa's. I think it's a setting in Zoom that I can't seem to override, but at least we can hear each other and talk. And we're going to be showing screen most of the time anyway, so
yeah,
it won't matter.
for sure.
Do you want me to go ahead and get started then?
Yeah.
Okay. What I thought I would do is start by just, I think, Megan, were you a review coordinator last year?
I was not. This is my
Okay.
first year as a review coordinator, but I had reviewed programs for 3 years prior.
Oh, okay. So you're familiar. So this will be somewhat familiar to you.
Okay.
The review coordinator function in the system, which is what I'm going to show now, is a little bit different than being a reviewer, but not very much. The basic functionality is the same. It's the same basic process of log in. There's the list of programs. You look at the list of programs that your team has reviewed. You look at their scores, and then basically what you're going to do is you're going to, at this point, decide whether you accept, alternate, or decline, and then hit submit, and then move on to the next. And there's some other things that Melissa's going to cover that we're going to be wanting you to do as well.
Okay.
And I will let Lori go through her part first and show the system and all that, and then I'll go into I sent out some instructions, and there's several things I figured out ahead of time that went out via email in like January last year. We're just going to do it all in one shot this year. So we'll let Lori do the system first, and then we'll jump into the additional sort of instructions about what to do.
All right, so I will go ahead and do that. Let me pull up my screen here and share. And share. Here we go. All right, so, and I also have that, there's my little handy handout also, which sort of provides this step-by-step as well. And I always say that I make this sound a lot harder than it really is. It really is, this part's pretty easy. It's the decision-making part that is difficult. I should say difficult. It's a challenge, but it's fun. Easy for me to say because I'm not the one doing that part. But so basically, how you're going to access your programs is you're going to go to the Akuhuai main website, just like this. And can you see my screen? Do you see the website up here?
Yep.
Okay, good. So you're going to hit this button up here, the login button to log in, and you're going to follow the prompts and procedures to log yourself in. Your login name is usually your email, almost always, and then whatever username is a password that you have designated for yourself, type that in there. If for some reason you have any trouble logging in, just feel free to shoot me an email and we'll make sure that we can get you logged in. But what will happen after that is, and I'm going in through the back end of the system here, and I'm going to log in as Batman because he's the one that I always like to use for these demonstration purposes. So I'm going to pull another screen over in a minute, and I'm going to show you what it's going to look like when you actually log in and sort of where to go to pick up the programs that you're going to review. So when you log in, and you're probably familiar with this already, it's going to take, it may or may not ask you to select an identity if you have an individual or organization both attached to your account. So in Batman's case, I'm going to log in as the individual because that's the right way to do it. And it's going to take you to, I guess, what I always call your profile page, basically, which has all, summarizes all of your different information. And if you look over here on the right-hand side towards the bottom, there's a tab called Applications. And for those of you who have reviewed in the past, you may have a big old long list of these links under here, going back maybe to 2014 of, review 2014 entries. But you're going to pick up, now this says 2019, that's because round 2 isn't open yet for 2020. So just pretend that says 2020. You're going to go down to most likely the last link and click on it. And if you've reviewed before, this is the same process that you would have followed before. You may have to drop down and switch it over to round 2. And it's going to tell me that there's no entries in there, which isn't true. Okay. Oh, wait. No, maybe it is. It's thinking. There we go. Okay. So you may have to switch over to round 2. Round 2 should pop up automatically because when you're logging in, round 1 will be closed. But just in case that happens, just make sure you hit that drop down. And here you're going to see, these are all the programs, and this is bucket 1 for example purposes. These are all the programs that your reviewers have reviewed. And so you'll see 3 links here. One is submit scores, one is view scores, and one is view entry. So the one that you might want to look at first is this one called view scores. And I always hit my control key on my keyboard so that it opens up in a new tab. So I can just flip back and forth in between pages. And it'll bring up this little sort of dashboard that'll give you a nice picture of these are the people that are on your judging team for that bucket and the programs that they've scored, how they scored them. And at the bottom, you can see the comments. And then it also gives a total of each column, which we don't really use. We really use the average. So it will give you that and also give you a summary for this program, combined score and average score. And so you have this little summary here. And here you can see where someone has gone through and kind of designated this one as an alternate. So actually I shouldn't say that. That's actually what you're going to be doing. So don't look at that yet. So since this is from 2019, this is completed from last year. So it's kind of 2 steps to it. You're going to look at it, then you're going to score it and accept it, and then that little part would pop up. So also, this dashboard is nice, but I'm also going to send you a spreadsheet. And so if you've reviewed in the past, you're probably familiar with that spreadsheet. It's just a little more useful. And I'm just going to go ahead and show that if that's okay, if that doesn't disrupt the process too much. But after round 1 closes and I close all that out, I create these spreadsheets and I use pivot tables and they look like this.
Yep.
And it's basically kind of it's like that dashboard, but you can actually do stuff with it. And it kind of gives you all the scores. The only thing it doesn't include is the comments because that would just make it really big and unwieldy. So you can always go back and refer to the comments in the system if you want to read those. And we've also added some columns here on the end, which Melissa's going to talk about in a little while. So these are some additional things that we're asking you to do with this spreadsheet. But this will really help you kind of figure things out because it is hard to look in the system and go back and forth and try to do things. So I'll be sending this to you before you start your round 2 review. So I'm just going to go back here for a second and then go back to this main page. So in theory, you're going to look at all the scores, and then you're going to make your decisions on whether you're going to accept, alternate, or decline. And I mean, you can decide what way you want to do it. And sometimes it's easier to use that spreadsheet and do them first on the spreadsheet and just kind of, I mean, if it were me, that's probably what I would do, but I'm kind of old school. And then by the time you're getting to this page, maybe you're just submitting your scores. You're looking at your spreadsheet and you're saying, okay, I've already decided this is what I'm going to do. And then it's just sort of data entry from there. So you would click on this first one here and say, okay, I'm going to submit my scores. And what you have to do, you have to put something in here or it won't accept it. So I ask everyone to just put 1. Like so, and these scores don't affect the total. They don't do anything. All they do is allow you to submit the form. So you're going to put 1s here. And let's just say I'm going to do all my accepts first. That's kind of the way I have it laid out in the little cheat sheet that I gave you too. So I would say, accepted. And it's kind of good if I didn't lay this out, but they all say accepted rather than accept. It makes it a little easier to sort things later. So if it's accepted, alternate, and decline, that's helpful. And so what you're going to do then is you're going to just hit submit scores and it'll submit, and then you're going to go back to the list and just keep going. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep.
I really made it sound like a lot more than it is.
And so
No, this is helpful. Thank you.
generally speaking, you don't want to put any other kind of notes in that field there that she's showing you. You just want to have the accepted, alternate, or decline.
Question for you both, and I apologize if I'm jumping ahead. I feel like last year, Stuart had asked about our ranking of like, what was our number one of accepted and number two, or did I make that up?
You didn't make that up. We're going to get into it. I'm going to tell you what are all the other things that we need you to share with us. And we're actually going to use the spreadsheet to share those since
Gotcha.
we can't share them through the system. So
Perfect.
yeah, we're going to go through those.
Was this confusing? Or do you want me to go back over anything? Or do you have any questions before we kind of flip over and look at that spreadsheet?
My only question about this spreadsheet is it we're all utilizing Excel spreadsheets separately and sending it to you to combine, or is it a Google spreadsheet?
It's an
So
Excel.
Okay.
yeah, and you don't need to. So I'm going to be pulling everything out of the system. So the spreadsheet is just this is the wrong spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is a tool for you to use to help you kind of sort out what you're going to do. The data entry part that I was showing you, you have to do the submit part because it all goes into the system. So you have to, once you've used the spreadsheet to kind of map out what you're going to do,
Okay.
you got to go on and submit these scores. So I pull everything out of the system.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, so you don't have to, that spreadsheet is for you to use whatever way works for you best. Just sort, print it out, write on it, however it works for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Except for, I think, oh, go ahead. Melissa's probably going to say she wants us to send the spreadsheets eventually to her, though, because
Yes.
you're going to want,
Yeah.
because this is kind of new, actually, so you're going to want, she's going to want this part.
Yeah. I'll go through what basically, yes, you're going to send it back. So why don't we jump into the instructions that I have, and that'll get us into sort of that piece of it and what we need back.
Okay, do you want me to stop sharing so you can show things?
Yeah, why don't you stop sharing so I can share
Okay.
instructions.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? So, excuse me, wow, frog in my throat.
Am I getting you sick?
No, we're in the middle of an office move, and so there's dust and all kinds of things as we're packing and unpacking, and so I've just had this weird thing going on. But anyway, so it's accepted, alternate, or decline,
Right.
correct?
Yep.
Okay, not accept.
It's probably easier to type accept.
Well, and it would be, because I can see people doing accepted and declined, so I didn't know if we wanted to try to be consistent and
Yeah.
just.
Because the inconsistent tense will bother people. Kind of bothers me. So why don't we just do accept,
Okay,
alternate, decline. It's two less characters to type.
that's
Anyway.
right.
All right.
But the same amount to paste, just paste, paste, paste.
That too. Yeah, we could do that too. And then ultimately, I can sort on accept or accepted, but I think it's just
Okay.
better to use the
I know
same.
it's easier for you if it's all consistent.
Yeah.
All right. So what I pulled up here is the instructions that I just sent out, and I will also put all of these documents, what Lori shared with the coordinator scoring review guide, as well as this and such on the community. So the first step here in these instructions is basically doing what Lori just showed you. So that is, and this starts, remember, on the 18th, Wednesday the 18th, because technically speaking, we should be done with round one on the 16th. Lori needs some time to do some things in the system. And so once she tells us to go, this round two starts on the 18th. So by Monday the 30th, we're looking to do what Lori just described. That's really not step number one here. You're using the coordinator score in your review guide to do that. It shows you exactly what she just stepped through in terms of marking all the programs. It notes here that all of the programs that are not chosen as accepts or alternates should be declined. So you want to make sure you do mark every single one. And also, we had mentioned this last year, so I wanted to make sure we mention it again with quick takes. You just want to include those as part of your overall process and numbers as you go through this. So if, don't consider them as a different type of program, just include them as part of the overall. Also, please make sure that you make note of any comments or reviews that need to be edited as you're going through and looking at what your reviewers have said, because our people who propose will actually see all of those. So if you see any edits, one of the last things I'm going to ask you all to do is to email Lori and I to let us know, just so we can make updates. So that's really step one. Step two, and this is where we get into the spreadsheet and what needs to be put into the spreadsheet. So this is the same deadline by Monday the 30th on the Excel program report for your buckets, which Lori said she's going to send. You're going to fill in several columns. And so she showed you her version of the spreadsheet. I have sort of a sample mock-up here. So as I go through this, I can kind of show it to you. So that's right over here. So A is you're going to fill in the accept, alternate, decline column to match what you entered in the Kuhai system. You may actually, as Lori noted, you might choose to just do this first and then go back into the system and put the information in. So you'll do that first. You want to fill in the accepted programs proposed order column with a proposed order for all of your accepted programs. And that's just what might make sense over the course of a 10 conference program session. Say you're told to accept 14 programs and you have 14, so you might have 1 through 14 numbered, and we will just figure that out as we go in terms of, it's just sort of as you look at them. If you were to say, look at all of the programs you accepted in your bucket and think, I'd like to attend every single one of these, what order would you like to see them in if you were a conference attendee, would be the way to do that ranking column. So that's B there. C talks about filling in the accepted programs active learning possibility column. So as you probably remember, this year, one of our pilots is to have some programs that are fall into this active learning or participatory learning category. And so those are going to be everyone who was interested in being considered for that pilot checked off the box when they proposed a program. And any programs selected for that are going to be 75 minutes. And the presenter is going to have the opportunity to participate in a webinar about how to best put together those sessions. And so we want you, as you're looking at your programs, if you see ones in particular based on what your reviewer said, based on just sort of your overview of the program, that could be good active learning possibilities, we want you to let us know which ones those are, so we can then take another closer look and make some decisions eventually about who's going to get picked up for that pilot, who gets the 75 minutes, all that. So that's C. D is to fill in the accepted programs threaded program possibilities. So if you remember, that's the other pilot we're doing this year with threaded programs. So those are going to be programs that have learning outcomes that will fit together, typically 2 to 3 programs, and they could, there'll be one after another. There hopefully will be a cohort that goes through all 3 of those programs together. And so those presenters will be, they'll be encouraged, once we pick those, they'll be encouraged to work together to make those all sort of fit. I said here, if you can indicate like, yeah, this would be great as a threaded program, and indicate the numbers. So you'll see my example here. I see like, yes, thread these 3, and I put it on all 3 of them to indicate that these ideally would all be threaded together if we want to, if we pick them up. If you have an alternate that you think might be a good fit in a threaded program series, so say you have 2 accepted and an alternate, and those 3 would be great as a thread, note it there, because a lot of times we might decide then to pick that alternate program up if we have a slot, especially if it fits into the threading. That might be a good reason to sort of add it on there. So you can indicate that as well. And then the other category that we're going to ask you to think about as you look at everything that you have across the board is the senior leadership. And this is really, this is for the SHO pathways. So if you have any programs in your bucket that you look at and you think these might be good for that category, generally they're going to be those programs that have senior leadership as a target audience. They're probably going to be those programs that are proposed by people who have a lot of years of experience in the field, which that was one of the questions we asked this year on the program proposal form. How many years do you have? So if, as you are looking, we're going to ask you also to give us like a, yes, this one might be good for that kind of category. So that's just to start to get at some of those specialty items. So as we start to look at all the programs across the board and fill in some of the blanks in terms of our pilots and things like that, we have a better idea of what you've got going on in your bucket. Does that make sense? Do you have questions about that? Like I said, this is just a mock-up. Lori's spreadsheet has a lot more in it, but the idea is that you have these columns that you'll be filling in.
Melissa, I can only see the instructions. I can't actually see the mock-up that you're referring to.
Okay, I'll make sure either I'll have Lori put like a sample of what she was doing out on the community, or I'll send mine along. It does either way. It's just
okay.
It's columns named just like they are in the instructions.
I just wasn't sure if you were trying to share your screen. I was like, I can't see it.
Yeah, so it's basically just those 5 columns to fill in for all your programs.
Okay.
And then really the second part of the instructions, or the third step in the instructions, is to send that spreadsheet back to Lori and I. Let us know if there's any comments that need to be reviewed or edited. And then also let us know if there's any reviewers who didn't participate in the process, so we can update our records for that. The thing I didn't mention here is how many programs are you supposed to accept? So right here at the very bottom of my instructions, the second page, there is actually a whole table of the number of programs to accept by core competency. So this is, you're going to look and see, and if you were working with, Amanda, and you're working with assessment, you're going to accept 3 programs in the assessment category. So that's what you're aiming to do. And then you'll look at the others and you'll determine if they're alternates or if they're declines. We're recommending that you aim for 10 alternates, but in reality, some of these categories, there aren't 10 possible alternates. And you don't want to make something an alternate if really it's a decline. If it hasn't scored well enough, it doesn't really, have, if the quality of the program isn't as good, it's missing some pieces, that may very well be a decline. But ultimately, these are the number of programs you're aiming to accept. And so you're going to want to look at that for each one of your competency areas that you have in your bucket and use these numbers to guide how many you accept. So, questions about any of that? No? Okay, so really what will happen next, like I said, we'll post all this on the community. Lori, is there anything that I am forgetting? Anything you would add?
The only thing is I'm going to send out on Friday, sort of like a scorecard from each of your buckets that shows like the progress of your reviewers. So you'll be able to see any, I know that you've been in contact with them already, but you'll be able to see any gaps in there of any individuals who might need a little nudge to finish up over the weekend, I guess, right? So, so I'll be sending that out on Friday.
Melissa, my question would be about the notes of any comments or reviews that need to be edited. What format do you want that in? Like, is it like, here's the program number, here's the edited comment? Like, I know you want it emailed, but like, is there any formatting that would make it easy for you all?
To be honest, that spreadsheet, if you put a column on the very end that said comments to be edited and noted it there, that would make it super easy for us to find them.
Okay.
Because we'd be able to just look it up by the entry ID and, and sort of, type whatever portion of the comment that is problematic, and we can just do it from there.
Right.
Yeah. Anything that for us includes the entry number is going to make our lives easier.
Okay, perfect.
Good.
I just didn't want to send you something that makes sense to me but doesn't make sense to you.
Right. So I know this is a little bit, different than what we've done in the past. It's a little bit more because we're, asking you to look at, SHO pathways and threaded and active and try to kind of think about where in the lineup these things might go to. So, but I think in the end, it would all be really helpful to have thought about this ahead of time before we get to Columbus in January.
Yeah. Hey, Lori and Melissa, so I'm looking at email number 3, the reviewer status check-in, and I know, Lori, you said you'd send us a list of progress on Friday, but the email for tomorrow is, sorry, wow, words are hard. It's a check-in, and so I don't know if it's easy for you to pull a list and give us an idea of how our people are doing in this first one, because it says thank you to insert the number of members who have already reviewed all the programs and are done. But I don't know how we would know that.
My email template for the second, like for the one where you told them to go ahead and review, part of the template was to tell them to email you when they were done.
Right. And
no, they should have told me.
I've had one person do that, so somebody read the email, but I also had somebody write me and say, so am I only reviewing half of them? I'm confused. And I'm like, yes, you are only reviewing half of them. So.
Let me, especially for some of the bigger buckets, maybe I better crank those out this afternoon and get those out to you. I'll do, if I can do them all, they take a little bit of time, but
I mean, it's not a huge problem, but I do have a couple of people in my group who are not very communicative. And so I'm wondering, like, 2 of the recent ads that Melissa gave me, they never confirmed. So I sent them everything as though they were full steam ahead, but I honestly don't know. And so that will give me an idea of if they're even participating.
Yeah.
Well, and ultimately with your bucket in particular, you have so many reviewers. Honestly, if some of them just don't do it, they just don't do it at this point, because you do have a large number of reviewers.
But there's really only 4 or 5 for each group. So I don't know how many reviewers are on the other teams, but so one of my groups has 4 and one has 5.
Okay.
I'll take a look. I'll run
Okay.
something out of the system and see how it's going.
And hopefully people will respond, but there are 2 who have not communicated with me, so I'm a little concerned that they may, and I split them, so one is in each group, just in case they both failed to participate, it wouldn't negatively impact one set.
Yeah.
They ghosted on you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll run a report out of there and see how we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
no
I
problem.
don't want to make more work for you, but it would help me out.
No, yeah, definitely, especially in some of those larger buckets too. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and it is, I mean, the review timeline is really tight. So we are asking people to get something done that used to take like 3 weeks to do it. So we're.
Yeah, it is very tight and a busy time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep kind of checking myself. I'm like, why am I so crazy? It's like, oh, that's because we're doing all of this now. Like normally we'd have a whole month to kind of do these kinds of things, and we don't.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, even some of these things that we're now doing in round 2 that I've outlined, we actually did some of those right after the break, but round 2 didn't end till after the break. But this is about getting things in order so Lori can do what she needs to do right after the break. So she's ready for our meeting. And so it is, everything is a bit more compressed. We'll see how it goes. It will, reformat for next year if we have to.
Yeah. Be like, no more of this on January 14th business.
Right.
Who decided that?
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else? Otherwise, we'll get all this up out in the community, including the link to the YouTube and all of that, so folks have it.
Yes.
For you who aren't with us.
Cool.
I'm going to work on some scorecards then.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
We will do you proud.
We know you will.
All
All right, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. Bye.